I'm very blessed. I get to meet some wonderful people and hang out with some wonderful people. And one person who I coached a few years ago, and she is now the executive producer of Downton Abbey. She's been involved since the beginning, so she's now in series 6 of it. And we get together regularly and have lunches, and she's a very spiritual woman, and we've had conversations about stuff. And I said, but do you ever talk publicly about, what you believe in and what your beliefs are? And she said, no, not really. I said, well, would you be interested to have a conversation that we could share? She said, okay. So about 6 weeks ago, I went and we had a conversation. I recorded it, and it's on my blog. You can go and have a look at it. But she said so many inspiring things, but one thing, I softened when she said this. I'll share what she said. I asked her the question, I said, well, look, obviously doing what you're doing, you're working with tremendous talent, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. But do you have to deal with big egos as well? And she said, yeah, that's part of the territory of being a producer, is you have to deal with big egos. But she said, what I've learned, and she's been a producer for 30 years, is that everybody, whenever they're thinking about putting their creativity out into the public domain, everybody feels a bit vulnerable. Even the top talent in the world, in front of the camera and behind the camera, feels vulnerable. And when she said that, something in me kind of softened. And I was kind of going, well, what am I so worried about now? If the top actors in the world and the top talent in the world feel fear and resistance, why do I give myself such a hard time about it? So she went on to say that, she recognizes that everybody wants to give their best, and on one level, probably everybody's afraid that they may not get to give their best. So her job as a producer, she said, is to create a loving environment where people can feel safe so that they can give their best. I just thought, isn't that a remarkable thing? Wouldn't it be lovely if all of us wanted to create more kind of safe and loving environments where everybody could give their best and work on the assumption that everybody wanted to give their best? And that even if people acted up, it was because really they did want to give their best and they felt like they were being thwarted in doing that. So one of the kind of initial points I want to make is, if we could all just soften a bit and relax around this whole area of resistance, and I include myself because I still give myself a hard time over my own resistance, but what if we could just all accept that we all feel vulnerable at times, we all feel fragile at times, we all feel a bit scared at times. So it's not that there's anything wrong with us for feeling like that. The question is, what's our relationship with our vulnerability? What's our relationship with our fear? Because if we can develop a more empowering and friendly relationship with it, that's when we can then move past our fear. But I've certainly had a very, less so now, but a more antagonistic relationship with my fear. It's almost like I beat myself up for being afraid and give myself a hard time for being afraid and vulnerable and scared. Whereas the more I can relax and just be kind to myself, then I can make some new choices. But, the very fact of kind of being tough on ourselves when we feel vulnerable and when we're in resistance actually just compounds it. So for me, it's not about fighting our resistance. It's about accepting it on one level, which seems paradoxical because often we think, well, if we accept something, we're stuck with it. But to me, the paradox is when we deeply accept something, it begins to transform.